kind of different breed of developers than are probably here. So I'm just going to explain it quite quickly. So you can't see anything, but what I did is I did a Google search on Haxe and a Google Insight search on the Haxe keyword. And while I feel like there's much more developers in the community, when you look at the Google search results, there doesn't seem to be many more searches for Haxe. So it does look like since 2008, it seems to be a steady amount of searches. And I compared it to like stuff like Flex and other languages. And it used to have, like, with Flex, it was 2007, it went up, and then it went kind of down here from there. So we kind of, using these metrics, because I don't have any other, it looks like we're not getting many more searches for Haxe for some reason. And well, the question is why? Because obviously it's really a good language, it's getting better from what we all can see. And there are some reasons that I think Haxe should be getting more popularity. I mean, one is Flex is kind of dying, so a lot of people who in the Flex community are looking for new things to do. The other thing is that they're getting, if you need to switch from Flex or Flash, you most likely need to code in JavaScript, and I know that there's a lot of people who don't like that. Like the quote, I'm not getting animations, so like the quote that I think it's partially true that we have so many better languages right now. I mean, better when it comes to structure and when it comes to what you can do with them, and we're still teaching people JavaScript, and we're still using JavaScript and coding JavaScript, and it's not a bad thing, but we probably could do better. I mean, for example, with Haxe. So I was going to talk about this in the early morning, so I decided that some marketing might be good because everyone loves that. And I'm sorry if anyone here knows anything about marketing, because I read like 2 books to get this ready, so I know almost nothing. But this is, I think, one of the theories that might kind of explain why we're not getting a lot of developers on Haxe. Because the marketing people, they were trying to sell like innovative products for a long time, and it's not the first time that this happens. And they divided the market into some groups, and like there's innovators, early adopters, early majority, and some other people that I'm not going to talk about. And I think it might help to figure out who's who in here and how you can get the different groups to hooked on Haxe. So the first part is innovators. So like classically the first people to adopt a new technology are those who appreciate for its own sake. So I think we got that covered in the Haxe community. Like everyone was sitting, like this guy's sitting there, and we get that covered. So this group is really good with Haxe. You can really get people who are innovative and who like Haxe and can do work with Haxe a lot. Then we have the early adopters, and these are the people who are starting to use the technology for selling products. So we have had also people doing games and doing the TV stuff, and that's really, it's not only about the technology, it's also about making sure it sells to the client, and they are quite sure that they can use it. So I think we kind of have this group covered too. But then there's the early majority, or the pragmatists, and what the marketing book says that these are the people who are like the beginning of the massive market. So if you want to go massive, you have to get to these people, because they are the majority of who's using languages and who's using technology. And there are a few things that make them quite distinct. So they're not really buying the technology, they're buying everything that's surrounded it. So they're buying the reliability, they're looking at the documentation, the infrastructure, support, whether they can get all of that in the package. And the difference is that these are companies those are people that are probably going to stay. I mean, once they get to Haxe, they will probably stay with it for a long time, because they just invest their company into that, and they might not have a way to change from that in the next year. So it's a big decision for them. So I was doing some test teaching of Haxe, and one of the things that I found out that these people usually get to a new technology when starting a new project. So they need a new project and they need to find out what can they use for it. And if they look at like HTML5, they have like all these choices to pick. So what they do is they have like 2 hours or 3 hours to browse through technologies, and they can spend like 2 or 3 hours at one. And if they get started on it and they can find something on the net and it just starts to work, it gets to the next round of picking a technology. But if it doesn't, it's just the end. So it's really important to get to make it very easy for them to get started on Haxe. And I'm not going to talk about the rest of the people there, because the theory is that you have to use the people from the early part to get the people from the next. So if we have the innovators and early adopters, then we kind of should target those people, the early majority, who are kind of looking for new technologies, and are not very conservative, but are also not going to try it out. So if we take like this, and I think it's a good metaphor, like this is like time travel and adventure, but if you look at it from a perspective of a person who's on the street, this is like a crazy movie. It's some guy with a car who's trying to get time travel, and this guy's okay with that, but that doesn't look like a good idea if you ask someone from the street. So we probably fine when it comes to like adventurous people, but it's a bit harder when it comes to people who are more conservative. And also part of the theory is that between the early market and the mainstream market, it doesn't just go easily through, but like there's a break between them, and you have to if you want the technology to go to the mainstream market, you have to make a jump and kind of do a lot of work that's not continuous. You have to it's very, very different. As I said, I've been doing some test teaching of Haxe, so I really got to stand around people who are getting to read Haxe for the first time and like stand above their shoulder, and I got some notes on what they find, what kind of troubles they find with Haxe at first contact. So one of the first things is, can I do the full screen, because I have layers. Will it work? If I do this, will it work? Oh, okay, because I was told.
Okay, you can.
Okay, because I just had layers. Right, so the first thing I did was they found dynamic somewhere in the code, and they asked, well, what is dynamic? And went to the API, looked at the documentation, and it says dynamics, it has special behavior. And it and see the Haxe language reference for more information anywhere in the API documentation. So what they did is they looked at the top and they searched for dynamic in the Haxe website. What they got was this. The first one says API, and there's the bitmap data. And well, luckily, if you Google it, you can get the good website where it says what dynamic is. But it's kind of a deal breaker when you can't find documentation about classes that are quite basic. It's really quite hard to tell people, yeah, this is like a great language and it's well maintained, when you can find something like that. Well, and I've been talking like with different people about how maybe we could do some documentation. I'm going to ask you at the end to like maybe not questions but kind of ideas. But I found myself creating this presentation, and I did the slides, and I'm quite happy with them. And I said, I pointed out that there's no link to the main dynamic page that should be there. And then 5 minutes later, I'm thinking, I should add it. It's a wiki. And I did. Right now there's a link, but this is, I think, part of the problem that we kind of, all of us sitting here are doing our projects, and we're kind of really busy with them, and no one. And it's hard to think about just making it easier for people who are well, who are in a different position because they just are. And I told you that this is what's gonna happen. This is this is like from Twitter. And I really love you for that. I'm using it every day, but I agree. There's obvious lack of documentation, but I did not write it, and I'm not writing any documentation for you right now, so I'm also to blame. But I also have an example from the code, which is also a bit. Which means while we can get documentation to be there, there's also a problem with making sure it's up to date, because here's something that I found documentation in your code, and I was like really happy until I found out that the params are not there anymore. I think documentation is one of the big things that we're missing. I'm just going to skip it. So not enough public shaming. It's not a big problem. I mean, for all of us, just to be clear, your code is like really nice to read. So that's not, it's not like spaghetti code which goes for pages and pages and pages. You can read it, but you still need to read the code. So if someone just comes in and wants to use it, it's not that easy. And well, we could probably do better as a community for making, like if someone needs to use something very fast, it might help to create some documentation. The other thing is, and this is part of my problem, that versioning is quite hard to keep versions of Haxe intact with, especially if you're using JavaScript, because the JavaScript people are also kind of working on those libraries, and it's not a problem with jQuery where the kind of it's getting maintained. But if you go to even to Haxe.js, I think, and any or one of the other libraries, if you download it right now, you obviously need to import the JavaScript code, and then you go to any website and download the newest library, and you find out, if you're lucky, that they do not match. So like the Haxelib version is for like 1.5 or something like that, and the new version on the website, which they promote because the new version is 2.0. So you then have to kind of work with this and get that started, and it's also not very easy. One of the things I think we could kind of use as a rule is sometimes, especially for libraries that are really changing quite fast. I'm really using the libraries. That's like a compliment. We always on most tutorials you just get to use lib and don't specify the version, and it's okay unless you're kind of leaving the demo running on you leave the demo for people to download and then try out, because they download the demo, they try to run it out, and they get the new libraries and it just doesn't work, and it leaves a bad impression. And again, it's not something that's a real problem. I mean, when you look for the programming point of view, this is like minor things and not really important. But there are so these are the really small things. But I'm talking about this because I was teaching Flex a lot, and the switch from Flex 3 to Flex 4, I think, like technically speaking, it was like a really good thing what they did, adding the new classes and stuff like that. But when I get people on the training, the difference between teaching Flex 3, which was quite good and it was organized and well, and quite simple, to Flex 4, where you get two sets of components. So you get like, I don't know, probably some people do code, but Flex, so like you had like one set of components, Spark, and one which are MX, and they kind of, sorry?
Fighting.
Yeah, they fight. I mean, there's like label for this, label for that, and you get errors like you're trying to do add child, with all Flash people try to do always, because it just makes sense, but when you're using one set of the component, it doesn't work. And this is my favorite bug. It's not a bug, it's a feature, that you have two ways of embedding fonts in Flex 4. And alerts are MX free, so they don't use fonts embedded for Spark components, and you can code an application for like 4 hours and have all the fonts, and then you show an alert and it's always empty because it doesn't have the font you need. So I'm talking about this for some reason. All right. The reason is that, as I said, I think like when it comes to technical stuff, it was a good move. Like it was a move forward, and it was really nice that they kept the old stuff in Flex because all the code was working. But when someone was just starting to do Flex, then it was just making no sense to them. They would come to the training and just ask, why am I using add element for this component and add child for 90% of other components? And in XML they look the same. Right, but that's the title. So what I mean is, if we want to get more people hooked on Haxe, and right now, we have to kind of treat them like latecomers. So people who probably will feel much of the stuff that's plain and easy and seems very natural to people who use Haxe, something that might be really bizarre. Like, I don't really have any example from Haxe. It's much harder than Flex to find bizarre stuff out of it, but it is a bit strange. Right. I'm kind of overlay with the talk from yesterday a bit, but I didn't want to just say bad things about Haxe right in front of you. So I've talked with them also about why they find it cool, and I try to find things that are not really obvious. So, all right. One of the things that I got asked a lot was, how can you quit Haxe once you started? And the obvious answer is you're probably not going to do that. It's like heroin, but that's not a really great answer that you're not going to stop using it. So this is one of the things that I find is quite calming to the people who start Haxe. That, well, just in case you don't like it, you can always take your code and just use PHP or JavaScript or something like that, and you can still use that code. It might not be great, but you still can. This is a hard thing to explain, and because when people hear that it's something that's cross-platform and you can write it once and run everywhere, they kind of start thinking about one of the few things that they heard before. So. Well, first of all, they heard it before, so it's not the first time someone's saying that. But people usually think about stuff like Java, and I think Java is a bit like this when you think about it as a tool. I mean, it does everything everywhere, and it just shouldn't. I mean, it's just really hard to get good experience out of Java on desktop and get everything in the same way. So I found that it's quite nice to explain it like this. It doesn't do everything everywhere, but it does a lot of stuff everywhere, and you can do everything with it on on each platform. So in the sense that you have to kind of treat platforms separately, but you get the core that obviously is cross-platform. Well, you've been talking about it yesterday, but you don't need to switch, and it's really, really important for most companies that they don't really need to switch to Haxe. They can try it out in some small part of their project, and it will work okay, and that's fine. There's this great community, and this is something that as I said, I'm thinking about developers and people who are starting to learn Haxe, and this is really important for people that you have a community that you feel welcome in, and that's very active and kind of cool. I mean, that's the vibe that Haxe has. First of all, because of the name, it probably makes it harder to sell to companies, but it's Haxe. But when it comes to giving it to developers, it sounds really cool. It has X in it, so. so this is like pointing them out to the website and to like Stack Overflow and the Google groups really helps, because you can see that the talks there are like really rapid. So you have posts that are minutes apart and not days. So this is like really nice. Right. This is some that I really think Haxe shines in. I think this project I hope to get started. And I think it really shows where Haxe is really nice. JS, I don't know if you know, there's like a whole system of map information about the world that like huge government organizations usually keep, and they have their own standard, which has like quite complex API because there's a lot of versions, a lot of stuff, and most of it, the complexity is not even the UI, which makes it a really good target for Haxe, because you can kind of write almost everything up to displaying it in Haxe, and if I can get the client to do this, I think it might be like a really good thing, and it's a perfect fit for Haxe. And all the algorithms that they have for like recalculating coordinate systems, because I don't know if this might be interesting. They use stuff like this to map the world. So it's not like really even simple stuff. They have like really complex algorithms that they tend to rewrite every like a year, because they have an app in Java that needs to translate coordinates from one system to the other. So they write it in Java, and it's like 2 pages long. It's not a huge thing. But then they need to do it in the browser, in the JavaScript. So they need to rewrite it in JavaScript. And then they go to Flash, and they have like a small Flash application that needs to calculate something. And they need to rewrite it in ActionScript. So whenever you have stuff that is kind of like algorithmic, Haxe is really nice, and you can reuse it to write something on the server side and then move it to the client side, which is also really nice. Okay. But this is something that I was amazed that ActionScript was one ActionScript developer, but he was telling me that he has a problem that he knows ActionScript and he can't code any tools for himself because it runs in the browser, I mean in the Flash player. He could create an Air application, but that's not something that's really nice. And this is I haven't thought about it before talking with him, that you can write command line tools knowing Haxe, while you can't do that using ActionScript, and more or less. It's something that as a programmer, it's quite nice to do that, and also that you can write JavaScript code, which is quite obvious. For Flex developers, Haxe just targeting different groups. For Flex developers, Haxe is really nice to learn new stuff. So because Flex makes you really, I know from my experience, that Flex makes you really lazy because it does everything for you, and it's quite. I mean, it made the transition for me using Haxe to using jQuery and stuff like that really easy, because I got code completion. It was checking my errors and stuff like that, and it's also really nice for creating server-side code. So if you're a Flex developer and you need to move to something, you can choose some technologies, but if you choose Haxe, you can also create PHP code or stuff like that, so you can kind of create whole applications without any issues. Yeah, for PHP, it's obviously compile time error checking, and one other thing is that you can kind of create forms that are being checked on the server side, obviously, because you need to do that then, but it's also very easy to move it to the client side, so you don't need to rewrite that, which happens a lot if you want to have that. Right, and so the idea is how can we go through that gap between the niche market that we are and the main market. And this is again from marketing books, but they have a cunning plan usually to kind of attack niches. So they find like a little area that might prove the technology useful, and I think that's happening with anime and games in Haxe. This is the area that if you search the internet, you can find a lot of people using Haxe in there, and it's a proven technology in that area. And what the marketing usually does is they just pick one after the others to get the whole thing covered. And I think it's quite good for us too, because as much as I would like to see documentation for everything, that's not going to happen. We're not going to write a documentation because no one likes writing it. And we're not alone in it, because there was a talk in my hometown by Björn Storstrup 2 weeks ago, and someone asked him, when will the new C++ book be ready? And he said, oh, we're all developers, we like to write code, we don't like to write books about code, so I'm probably by the end of the year, but I can't promise. So it's like everyone's doing this, no one likes to write documentation. But the idea of documenting little parts of it to make it useful for someone might be, I think, might be a good way to do it, because then someone can, for example, someone can start doing games, and I'm not going to promise this, but I might start documenting UFront because I really like it, and I think it might be really useful for people starting creating web pages with Haxe, because it just makes a lot of stuff very, very, very easy. I think for at least from my perspective, doing that with JavaScript is a bit hard, because, as I said, there's a lot of differences between libraries, and the versions are changing very quickly, and I'm even having some problems because JavaScript is very, you can do a lot of stuff with JavaScript that's really weird, and it's even hard to write extents for some stuff. So this is almost the last slide. As I said, I'm planning to start teaching Haxe for real. And this is also something that I found that it's quite hard to teach Haxe as a whole. So if you get 3 days to teach someone Haxe, you really have to pick a flavor of Haxe. So you can't really decide, I'm going to show you how to make games and create websites and do Flash and C++, because that's not possible in 3 days. So I also think that the idea that we can get people started on one thing or the other is really nice. So the idea is that I really think that Haxe is one of the best things that can happen to a programmer, especially one like me that's kind of lazy and doesn't want to learn a lot of languages and switch them every time. So I really feel like this is a good language for choice, but it would be really nice if we could figure out a way to share it with people who kind of like don't have time or skills to spend on getting to know it, and it might be really useful. So I know there usually should be questions, but I've talked with people here, and if anyone has any ideas, they would I can just summarize the talks. Like, there are ideas of gamification of documentation, so that you get points for writing documentation and all different stuff. But I can promise that I will try to finish a project that will just show basic usage of Haxe, which I started. But it would be really nice if we could kind of, as a community, get just sometimes think about those people who are not in the community right now, but might want to come here and help them. And I personally think that documentation is one of the key things that are missing in the Haxe community. And that's all, and like a nice picture of sharing for you. Okay, so does anyone have any questions or ideas?
I was going to say, one thing we were talking about earlier was about the training and stuff, and I think with each version of Haxe coming out, trying to write books, but for like 1 or 2 people it's quite hard. But if you link sort of syllabuses, so you're teaching, if you published your syllabus to the Haxe Foundation, and then somebody else published their syllabus, and sort of brought the syllabuses together and tried to standardise bits and pieces. Like, so you've got some sort of individuality, but you've also got the bits, and then you could actually use that as a book.
Yeah, I think. Well, right now I'm doing the first one. So I remember with Flex it took about half a year to a year to get it kind of solid and to figure it out. But yeah, it's a very good idea. I mean, I can. I'll do that. I mean, when I either put it on the Haxe website or when the Haxe Foundation is done, I can do that. I can just post at least the syllabus, because even if you don't have even before you start putting everything inside the course, when you have an index of stuff that is worth learning, it also helps a lot, because you kind of have an order to go through. But I think it should help.
I mean, lots of people who make some of the good libraries say, well, how do we make money out of this? And actually, if you did some training, if they did a training course, then put a thing together, then it can go in a book, I think it would make money.
Yeah.
Just a small comment on the website search.
Yeah.
Actually, I have a pending patch.
No,
I agree with you. It's that. And we have a pending patch that someone mainly sensitivity, and we integrate Google search into the sites.
Oh, that's
a lot better.
No, I mean, you can find it on Google, but so it's not a big problem. It just meant that it's a bit counterintuitive. It was counterintuitive. Yeah.
I guess really granular examples as well is another thing, like really small, and how we organise that, because we know a lot of them, and they should, for different platforms and different concepts.
Yeah, I kind of started a project which is really, I should kind of finish, but I started writing because it's easier for me because I'm going to use it when teaching, so I have a motivation. To just write, I did for Lambda and Array, and I created a small server to do to put the traces in the code. To just take array and just go function by function and just create simple use cases. And once I'm done, I think I'm going to send it to you or someone, so we could maybe link it to the documentation, so that you just get Lambda something, and you press the button, and you have the simplest thing you can do with it. And yeah, I think that should be a start, because it's also important. We've been talking with someone yesterday that to have really fun examples. So examples that you can show that what Haxe can do, because the basic ones, they don't really show anything. I think you need just all the levels to show what you can do, and just to make it easier for people not to have to stop and read the documentation or search Google or use the forum for half an hour just to find a simple thing because they got brain farts or something like that. It's just simple, just stopping them. Yeah.
So I think convincing programmers is one thing, but the fact is that a lot of programmers, like employees, not necessarily freelancers, and they don't have the choice of actually what language they're going to use or what technology. They're told, okay, we're going to use this, and that's it. And so what often happens, I get the impression with what I've seen around and talking with people, is that there's a lot of people who use Haxe after hours for their hobby projects, but their day job is doing something more mundane and money-making like Java. And the key would be is not, I think it just comes back to what was being said yesterday, is not to convince the programmers, is to convince the bosses.
Yeah, I mean that's because they don't talk.
Both ways.
Yeah, but it's both. It's probably just as important. I mean, it's probably more important to convince the bosses, if you want to get them to use them. But I'm working with for years with companies that are really small, so 5 to let's say 20 people, and in that case, they usually have to ask the developers, what's a good tool, and they have to, for example, with Flex, everyone's now looking for something new to choose to use, and it's probably going to be HTML5, but what you're going to use to build HTML5 website is kind of your choice. But at the same time, I think that's why having like a solid foundation and everything in place is important. That I still think a lot of people, while they use Haxe in their own projects, might be a bit worried to go to their bosses and say, all right, let's move to Haxe and all 10 of us now learn Haxe and create a big project in it, because it's a much bigger risk. I feel, so like for example, the first Haxe project I did was with the idea that, okay, they are small, if it all goes to hell, I can just rewrite them in PHP. So you know, and that's kind of a safe net that you can get if you're doing something small. But if you go to your boss, if he asks you, even if you use Haxe at home, it might still not be enough to allow you to say to your boss, oh yeah, I'm taking responsibility of the company moving to Haxe. So yeah, but yeah, it's obviously it has to go both ways.
The website is a huge improvement, by the way.
Yeah.
I tried selling Haxe to decision makers in the past, and well, the old website was a really hard sell.
Yeah, that's true. The new one is really great.
Yeah, I think one thing that was interesting in the chasm was that no one's really mentioned is tooling. I mean, that's certainly something that stopped me for sort of jumping into it earlier, because I think you pointed out Flex. I mean, one of the things with Flex was you can be lazy. You can just install a tool, copy some XML, run it, and instant satisfaction. And you think, wow, this works. So
yeah, Flex was really nice too. I mean, Flex was really easy to get people hooked on. One thing is the tooling, but that's getting much better. I mean, that's getting better like every week. I mean, if you check the tweet. But the other thing is, I remember a phase when Flex was suddenly, but that was Adobe. They were just paying people to do that. But there were Adobe people everywhere. They just on blogs, on Stack Overflow. They were just writing about Flex everywhere, and it was like a bit annoying. But you could get help and documentation of everything. But yeah, the tooling I think is. It's not that. I mean, it's getting much better. But a year ago it was.
We've got a problem again now in terms of. I mean, I want to check out the IntelliJ plugin because using the Flex one at the moment, and IntelliJ is quite good. I mean, it's not the best, but the problem with that is it's still buying. I think you can only use that plugin in the sort of premium version, or am I wrong on that?
I don't know. I'm using IntelliJ, so.
No, the plugin's free, but you can only use it in the premium version of IntelliJ. So yeah, I think from my point of view, that chasm thing, because the language is fantastic. I mean, but from my point of view, if Haxe was going to cross that, then that would be an important part of it.
You can use FTP5 if you want to. I think that, for instance, Mono developed.
I heard. I was going to try FTT because I used to use that when I was doing Furious 3.
Free to download for some stuff. The advanced tools, I think you pay.
Yeah, but
doesn't really do very much. Though.
Yeah, I've heard it's not great yet. So
No, I'm sure.
I'll give it a try for sure.
Yeah, that's a bit. Yeah, but that's a bit of a problem. I found that I was reading the website that everything has code completion. I was like, oh yeah, great. Then I installed some tool and it doesn't have that. Sure.
Mono develop. I think just to be able to. Flash develop seems to be the obvious first class ID. Hi Philippe, wherever you are. And to be able to get it running on a Mac.
Yeah.
So I see a lot of Macs here somehow. Is really painful. I mean, I've tried and failed a few times, so right now I just don't. Just when that will finally come out, I think that will make a huge step forward.
Didn't come out like last week when I would develop?
Oh, it did? Can you try it?
Yeah.
I'll show you.
That's cool. Great.
So that's done. I really think it's like moving in the right direction. I just wanted to point out that it might need like a little extra push at some point just to make sure it works. Right.
Someone else mentioned last night about a kind of view source
way of like sharing, like showing something,
Oh.
sharing the, you know, how it was done as well. You know, like packaging it up. I think,
Yeah,
the idea for sharing ways of doing things is probably really.
Yeah, that's cool. A cool idea. Yeah,
Macros and, you know.
because like I think we have like the whole big thing ready and it's like really good. Just there's missing those little things that just stop people from using it. And as I said, I really think there's like a difference in classes of people who kind of go to technologies. So like there's I think an example of iPad. So like you know there are people who will stand in line and buy the iPad on the first day without knowing what it's doing. Then there are people who will just buy it right now when it's getting cheaper and there's a new version of iPad. All right. Okay. Thanks very much for listening.